Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you with us today. We're setting the stage for a really fascinating, impartial dive into what is absolutely one of the most foundational narratives in all of Islamic tradition, the epic of Prophet Ibrahim. Whether you know this history like the back of your hand, or you're coming to it for the very first time, the sheer scale of these ancient texts is honestly just utterly captivating. So let me start off by asking you this. What could possibly link an ancient roaring fire, a desperate, frantic search for a desert spring, and literally millions of modern pilgrims circling a stone building today? It's this massive, sweeping mystery, right? How deeply personal ancient struggles managed to birth some of the most widely practiced modern rituals on the entire planet. Let's find out. To really understand this, we have to go back to the beginning. Chapter 1, The Search for Truth. Our setting is the ancient, bustling city of Babylon. Now, in Babylon, idol worship wasn't just some casual religious practice. It was the entire economy. The whole social fabric was built on it. Ibrahim grew up right in the middle of this. He was surrounded by people, including his own father, who literally carved and worshipped stone statues. But here's a crucial detail. The Babylonians were also master astronomers. Okay, let's dive into this. The source texts tell us he didn't just blindly go along with the crowd. Instead, he brilliantly used their own reverence for the stars against them in this really powerful logical progression. He went out and he watched the stars set. Then he watched the moon set, and eventually the sun set. His conclusion? He rejected all of them entirely. I mean, it makes total sense, right? He reasoned that things which disappear just cannot be the ultimate creator. The true creator has to be eternal. And that logical rebellion naturally leads us right into Chapter 2, the Fire of Nimrod. So Ibrahim's conflict with his society starts escalating, right? And it reaches a total boiling point when he actually smashes the city's stone idols to prove that they're, well, lifeless. The texts describe him staying behind during a massive citywide festival. He destroys all but the largest statue and literally leaves his axe hanging on its shoulder, basically exposing the fact that these so-called gods can't even defend themselves. Obviously, destroying the city's gods lands him straight in front of the tyrant King Nimrod. And here we get this incredibly tense philosophical duel. Nimrod claims he possesses the power of a god over life and death, and he tries to prove it by killing one prisoner and freeing another. But Ibrahim just completely outmaneuvers this flawed logic. He challenges the king, saying, "My lord brings the sun from the east, bring it from the west." And just like that, according to the texts, the tyrant is completely silenced. Humiliated and enraged, Nimrod orders a fire to be built. And we're not talking about a campfire here. This thing is so massive that Ibrahim actually has to be catapulted into it. No way around it. But as he's flying through the air toward what seems like certain death, he utters this deeply profound statement. Allah is sufficient for me. He is the best of all who handle affairs. He shows this absolute, unwavering reliance on the divine. And Islamic tradition dictates that the roaring fire miraculously turned cool, leaving him completely 100% unharmed. But surviving the fire is really just the beginning. It shifts our narrative to a grueling new phase. Chapter 3, The Trial of the Desert. Surviving the fire changes everything, but it also results in his immediate exile, which kicks off a decades-long journey. Let's look at this timeline to see how it builds. We're tracking an immense geographical distance here. He migrates from his birthplace in Babylon, moving over to Sham, which covers modern-day Syria and Palestine, then down into Egypt, and eventually he arrives at a barren, completely isolated valley known as Makkah. To put that into perspective, that is well over 1,000 miles on foot and camel in the ancient world. It's a huge distance, and it sets up the ultimate geographical isolation for the next massive trial. And this brings us to what is an incredibly heart-wrenching emotional constraint. Ibrahim is commanded by the divine to leave his wife, Hajar, and their infant son Ismail right there in the utterly desolate valley of Makkah. We're talking no water, no food, and absolutely no people. Just barren rock. But when Hajar realizes this is a direct divine command, she accepts it. She shows this immense, almost unbelievable resilience. Meanwhile, Ibrahim has to turn and walk away, his heart just breaking, trusting solely that his Lord will protect his family. So once the tiny amount of provisions they have finally runs out, the human struggle really kicks in. Hajar is agonizing over her crying, thirsty infant, and she frantically starts searching for help. She runs up the rocky hill of Safa, looks out, sees nothing. Then she runs all the way across the valley to the hill of Marwa. And she repeats this grueling, desperate sprint 7 times under the scorching, unforgiving desert sun. It is just a profound, visceral display of a mother's endurance and love. But then, right when hope seems entirely lost, a miracle happens. The sources describe the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, striking the earth and causing this powerfully flowing spring to just gush forth right at the infant Ismail's feet. This is the famous Zamzam well. And this miraculous water didn't just save Hajar and Ismail, it actually ended up attracting passing trading caravans, which literally gave birth to the city of Makkah, in a place that was once just empty, lifeless desert. This brings us directly to the absolute climax of our explainer. Chapter 4, The Ultimate Sacrifice. So years pass, Mocha begins to grow, and father and son are joyfully reunited. I want you to frame this next phase in your mind as the most difficult test of faith imaginable. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the number 86. Ibrahim waited 86 agonizingly long years for a son. He loved Ismail more than anything. Yet the texts tell us he receives a recurring prophetic dream commanding him to sacrifice this very same son. It's an almost unfathomable test of devotion and total submission. As Ibrahim, Hajar, and Ismail make the incredibly heavy journey toward the site of the sacrifice, they face intense psychological manipulation. Shaitan, or Satan, attempts to whisper doubts first to Ibrahim, then to Hajar, and finally to young Ismail. But here we see the really powerful rule of three in action. This family fiercely rejects those whispers, stoning the entity and driving him away at 3 distinct locations. They remain completely, absolutely unshakable in their resolve. The emotional peak of this story happens at the actual site of the sacrifice. Just listen to Ismail's devastatingly selfless words to his father. "Bind me tightly so that I do not move. Lay me face down, do not let me see your face, and do not let yourself see mine, so your hand will not shake." I really just want to let the incredible emotional weight and unconditional obedience of the son stand alone for a moment. He is actively helping his father complete an agonizing task out of pure, unmatched devotion. But as Ibrahim presses the blade, the texts tell us it miraculously refuses to cut. It simply won't harm him. Instead, a ram is sent down as a divine replacement. You see, the trial was never actually about the spilling of blood. It was entirely about the submission of the heart. Ibrahim and Ismail had proven their absolute, total surrender to the divine will, and so their sacrifice was accepted without the loss of the son. Which brings us to our final chapter, Chapter 5, An Enduring Legacy. Later in life, father and son reunite once again in that very same valley of Makkah, but this time it's with a new divine command to build a sanctuary, the Kaaba. And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply connected the past is to the present. The connections here are truly striking. Think about it. Every single moment of pain and perseverance from this one family became the exact blueprint for rituals practiced by billions of Muslims today. Hajar's frantic run between the hills, that's the sa'i, performed during Hajj and Umrah. Discovering the spring is the drinking of Zamzam water. Stoning Shaitan 3 times became the Jamarat. The divine replacement is celebrated globally as Eid ul-Adha. And building the Kaaba established the absolute center of global prayer and pilgrimage. It's just a truly sweeping narrative. So I want to leave you with this final thought. How does it change our view of modern rituals to know they were born not from ease, but from a family's ultimate crucible of trials? When we start seeing these traditions through a deeply human lens, a father's painful choices, a mother's desperate endurance, and a son's profound trust, the history comes alive in an entirely new way. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep learning about the fascinating origins of the world around us.